Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Agents at Work. Today, I am with Yunfan. Hi, Yunfan.
Hi, Jordi.
For our audience, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Yunfan. I'm currently working in Yutori. Yutori is a company that do API agents.
Nice. And how do you end up working on Yutori? Because I know that you have been working into AI before it was cool.
Yeah, great question. Great question. Oh, actually, my experience with AI has been a long time. Actually, I started working on some products when I was in college. At the time, I actually built some products like scrape the web to get some learning materials. At the time, I was in China and then I was studying English and trying to come to US. So I scraped some English exam questions and then make an app will help me improve my English and then improve the exam scores. So actually, later I improved the program and sold it to some other fellow students, and then it actually sold for like 100K copies. So at the time, I was really interested in startups and also like web information monitoring, scraping. Anyway, I came to US and I joined Google. When I joined Google, I was thinking, okay, maybe I should just stay here for two to 3 years, and then I will join a startup. But Google was too good, I guess. So I spent actually 6 years there building different kind of AI applications. I also trained different kind of models, actually like AI and AI application. And later, when ChatGPT came, I was thinking, okay, I have to join some other company. Otherwise, I will stay in Google forever. At the time, I just look outside and see that Meta was working on this cool open source Llama project. I think, okay, that might be a good chance for me to contribute to the world, because in Google, like everything is private, it's not open sourced. So I joined Meta and then trained Llama 3, and then at there I actually reunion with some my friends in Carnegie Mellon, Ray, for example. Later decided to join Yutori, and then he convinced me that we want to do something together in a startup. And then because as I said, I always want to join a startup and do some cool stuff. So I was okay. Let's do it together. Maybe it'll be a fun journey. Yeah, that's when I decided to join Yutori. At Yutori, we started with model training. So we actually train our own model that do web use. And later, because we want to productionize our model, with the model just API, we also want like end user to use it. So I start working more on multi-agent infra. So we build a multi-agent framework orchestration to make sure we can use this model to extent that will provide useful information for users. Yeah, we just launched our product last month. It has been a very fun journey for me.
I'm sure I have many questions about it. But for starting from the beginning, you moved to the US, you joined Google. What year is this? Like 2017, 18?
Yeah, I joined Google. Actually, I first joined Google as an intern in 2016 and then joined full time at 2017.
I see. And you started working on ML directly back then?
Yeah, I work on different kind of ML problems at a time. For example, we train some models. At the time, I actually mainly focus on computer vision. For example, we detect hand gestures, we detect face. We also do face match. Actually, the product launched on Google I/O as like you can recognize who you are and then try to personalize to your experience. So different kind of ML applications.
Yes.
And models.
Yeah, back then it was not LLMs, but all this was like really low level, like with TensorFlows and things like that?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And back then, when you want to, I don't know how big the team was, but when you wanted to do this, for example, detect a new gesture, how long since inception until, like you train the model, you run it, you test it, you iterate, and you say, okay, now it's good for production. So how long was that span of time?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, at the time, I think it took a long time, because if say you want to do hand gesture detection, at the time actually look for open source data set, which is very few. And then at Google, we are able to buy some data sets. And then we also have in-house data collection to collect different kind of data gestures. Basically, the idea is for any feature, we need to first collect data, train the model, maybe tune the model architecture, and then iterate through it to make sure, okay, there's no bug. And then we launch it. So the time frame usually from like inception to something that can be launched is 1 to 2 years. But nowadays we are so lucky, like with LLMs, it's a general model. So we can just prompt it to recognize a hand gesture. So maybe from idea to shipping, it may be only, I don't know, 1 month or even a few weeks.
Even less. Yeah. We are really spoiled now because we can do this. Like, it's not NPM install, but almost, like you can say like, okay, so give me a model out of the box and it's a small model. It runs in my laptop and you try it and already does what you wanted. And you're like, okay, this is great. And if it doesn't, you're just like, okay, so let's like fine tune it or something. And you can also
Exactly.
do it in no time. So I guess that back then in Google, you have like all the resources of the world. You are really cushy there. Then ChatGPT 4 comes out, and then you probably recognize if I am in Google now, I'm going to be in Google forever because, by the way, being in Google is a really good place to be in the era of AI, but you wanted something different. So you left for FAIR at Meta was?
Yes. Actually, that's a great question. So at the time ChatGPT came out, actually, I was working in Google for some similar project to ChatGPT. At the time, we call it Mina. Maybe you remember, or others maybe remember, some Google engineers actually have made the news saying the model is cautious. And then actually the leadership is very I don't know, worried about this, so try to minimize the impact. So we didn't launch anything. So at the time I was like, okay, we work on this project for a long time, try to be launched. Maybe we are not able to launch, so maybe find something else. Yeah, and then I left for Meta. At the time, it was fair to Gen AI transition. So
I see.
the Llama was first developed in Fair, but later it will pull from my Fair to make the later Gen AI. So when I joined, the Gen AI just established, I think, for a month-ish. Yeah.
And this was a transition from Llama 2 to Llama 3 or Llama 1 to Llama 2?
Llama 2 to Llama 3, yeah. I joined and then the Llama 3 started.
And the work there was also like pretty low level. So actually like having to train this stuff. You were fighting the kernels for training these, or what were you doing in there?
Great question. I think as my career progresses, I feel I'm going come up. So basically, at the time when I was in Meta, they already have all the infrastructure for training Llama, and then there are some people responsible for dealing with the kernels or infrastructures. So my job there was mainly to think, okay, what capabilities missing in Llama? So what I did was, okay, uh, at the time, and from Google's experience, I know some capabilities are very important, for example, multimodality or tool use. So at the time, I tried to pioneer that we should add these capabilities. To do so, basically, we collect some data. We also synthetically generate a lot of data because collecting data from humans is slow. Generating and as humans or even LLM to label it was much faster. So we generate lots of this data and then we just throw it to a model and train. And I think that's it.
And from that time, do you remember what were your thoughts about the future? Like you thought that AGI was going to be Llama 4? Or that we are far from it, and like you were like, well, I'm here for the long run, so I still have time to even like change companies, or what were you thinking back then?
Yeah, great question. To be honest, I always thought Meta as just a stepping stone because I mean it's open source. When I work there, I can kind of gather lots of knowledge about the external world. That's kind of how Google call it, like because Google has kind of a tech island. For Meta, I just trying to see, okay, first if I can learn more about open source and then how can I contribute more to open source. So when I join the startup, I have some knowledge and then I also more familiar to the external world. At that time, honest, I never thought that Llama would become I mean, at least not the first one to be AGI. I mean, to be honest with myself, although I was in Meta and I definitely hope Meta to have the best model, but Meta was like kind of behind than say Google, ChatGPT or Claude at a time. Plus, when you open source things, like the closed source model can also learn from open source technologies. Of course, open source have bigger community, but to beat closed source model, it takes a lot of work. It's not like a few years, it may take longer. So I never thought I will beat those like other three companies. But I do hope like the open source models are as close to the closed source model as possible.
Yeah, and I think that you actually like were there in the best of the time, because when Llama 3 and Llama 3.2, well, Llama 3, 3.1, 3.2 came out, people were really hyped. Like they were like, okay, like finally we have something that back then could compete with GPT 3.5 and maybe like a bit of 4. So people were really, really happy about that. So you were there for a couple of years, I guess, and then someone convinced you to move to Yutori?
Actually, I was there for only a year. So I only went through the full Llama 3 circle. So basically from the start of Llama 3 to finish the training and then launch the model. And then after that, it's roughly at a time when Llama 4 about to begin, I left.
I see.
I still said, yeah, I think it's really a rewarding journey. I really feel it's important that we democratize this LM power to everyone, so everyone has at least a decent open source model that they can use. They are not like buying to these closed source models.
How was the culture inside Fair? Because okay, they were doing Llama, but I think that Jan LeCun is also like one of the, I don't know if the director of it. So like, he's actually always wanted to push for something else, or like something at Tencent that can sum up. So how was the culture internally? Like there was any tension there with this stuff, or it was directly like, okay, yeah, everyone is happy?
Great question. Great question. I think that's why Meta decided to pull GenAI out of Fair. So basically, GenAI and Fair are two separate entity when we're doing Llama 3 stuff. For Jan LeCun, I mean, I have huge respect for him, but I feel his words sometimes are conveying the wrong meaning. I feel, I mean, he and others are pretty aligned, to be honest. I mean, we all believe with the current approach, we can get pretty far. We agree that AGI may come soon. I mean, the definition of AGI varies, but the common definition of AGI may come soon. So I think we have lots of like overlaps. But Yang LeCun kind of emphasized on some small details that separate, say, JEPA from the current approach. I mean, he may be right and wrong, but because his emphasis is feels like to everyone that he is like anti-LM, I don't think that's true. And then I think that hurts in terms of execution because, I mean, otherwise he might, like, for example, contribute more to Meta's LM format, for example. But because everyone see him as a critique, his role in LM is like much weakened.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually what it's felt from the outside too. Many times it feels like him against the wall. He's just trying to make a point, and many times it's like, okay, like point taken. We are doing this. We know that it has limitations, but we're going to go really far with this. And many times they are even discussing things that do not matter. It's like if you are doing automobiles, and he says like, well, but you cannot cross Atlantic with this, and you're like, I don't care. Like I'm going to move inside, for example, like North America with my automobiles, and I'm going to keep improving them. It's like, yeah, but you will never be able to go to Europe with the automobile. It's like, okay, like this is not what I'm trying to do here. I understand that there's something else that we need, but it's okay.
Makes
like
sense.
both worlds can live together. And then when you joined Yutori, how was it? Because you said like you were going up into this ladder of engineering. So you started as an engineering doing stuff, and then you kept moving up. That's easier to do in big companies, but then when you go to startup, well, there is not that many things up. Like everything is meshed together. So how was the transition?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, when I joined startup, I realized that like big companies. I mean, when I was in big company, I already knew, but once I joined, I knew for sure that like big company have many inference that we can use that make things like development much easier. At Yutori, basically have to use all open source projects, and we also build our own infra. So we spent some time setting up all the infers, training the models. And one transition I did was from training models to actually building the agents, because agents are kind of a wrapper around models. Of course, with like context engineering, all the technologies. But basically for me, I kind of like to learn new things. And then in the company, at the time at least, I'm kind of the person who kind of have more broad background. So for example, Ray, he spent whole his time in training models. I spend time in both training models and in building infers. So it makes sense for me to take on the multi-agent orchestration work. Yeah, so I mean, at the time, I think agents are pretty new. I mean, no one knows what agent is. Like, this is kind of end of, or actually beginning of 2025. NS wasn't there yet. NS is when kind of everyone see the agent. And we started building agents. And then I think it's pretty cool. Like we can test with different architectures and then try to see what's the best. Actually, along the way, like in the past year, we iterated through many different kind of designs. And then we know what's the limitation, what are lessons learned. And then we kind of put the best of what we know into the product and ship it to the world. Yeah.
When you joined Yutori, what was the pitch that they did to you? Because you were doing something that was like fully AI on big labs. So you were going to do research there? I was going to be building a product. What was the pitch?
Great question. Actually, Yutori is fully AI as well. It's just like different areas in AI. Like we also train models, just like we don't pre-train. We kind of post-train based on the open source model. Maybe one day we will pre-train as well, but that's hard to say. And we build agents on top of LMs. I mean, maybe in the future, maybe we'll build more things on top of agents as well. So it's also AI, just different areas. So I didn't feel it's a big transition for me. In terms of pitch, to be honest, it's mainly connections. A lot of the team, at least the initial team, are from Meta, so we already kind of know each other. Actually, I play with Ray and Tom, play soccer with Ray and Tom at Meta, so we actually pretty close. We kind of met almost daily. Yeah, and then another reason I joined is also because internship. I mean, Ray already decided, and then I was like, okay, working with Ray at this new company must be fun. And then I always wanted to join staff, as I said. So I think it's a good opportunity for me.
Yeah, well, it's the weapon that most of entrepreneurs have, that it's like recruit friends, that it's actually a really good weapon. You say like, well, how are you going to get a class team in the world when you are just a small starter? You're like, well, through connections. I'm well connected. So, I have many friends.
Yeah. Okay. And
Okay.
I also believe in great people. The team here is great. I do feel great team will build great product and will be successful.
Nice. And then you joined Yutori. You start working on these agent things. Most of the people now have a different idea of what an agent is. So for Yutori, or for you especially, like, what's an agent? Like, when you talk about an agent, what do you have in mind?
Great question. So when I talk about agent, I mean we have an entity around the models that use the model to decide what to do given a task. I think that's a valid definition. But compared to, say, workflow means you have a fixed workflow that's orchestrated by code.
I see. And the model here would be like a unique model. So it's basically like building a harness around and then letting the model like experience the world and act on it.
Yeah, so the model can be any model, but the agent will just use the model to decide on the things to do. So for agent, I think it's actually pretty simple in a nutshell. For example, you can just see it as a model inside, then you have a loop. Keep asking the model given the next action to take, and then action observation, and then next action, and then do the action, you see the next observation, then do the next action. So just a simple.
That makes sense. And here in Yutori, like when you have to develop these models or these agents, what kind of harness do you build internally?
Great question. We actually build lots of info.
Mm-hmm.
So just to name a few, for example, we have eval framework. I think that's very important when you improve things. You need to eval if you actually improve or not. And then we also build a multi-agent orchestration framework. Like basically we have agent of different roles. We have a top-level orchestrator. And then low level, we have different agents that specialize in different things. For example, one specialized in gathering information. One is specialized in planning, like travels. Another like marketplace, another financial, for example, things like this. And then potentially we can keep adding more and more agents, like specialized agents to specific areas we are like interested in, and the performance will just improve. It's like a human team where although like we start from like Meta, we all do Llama, but after a while we kind of specialize in a specific area, and this like division of labor just occur naturally. And then we kind of design this into the models, agents framework as well.
For these other agents, or like the roles that they have to fulfill, this specialization, what does it make them specialized? Like, do they have like different tools? Is it different prompting? Is different models?
Great question. I think both. I think it's both. The prompts are different. So for example, for travel agent, we'll have specific instructions on how to plan a travel well. The model are very smart. They know all the knowledge, but they need some protocol to execute upon. It's just like human travel agent, they need to know some standard protocols. And then the tools as well, for example, travel agents, they may have some access to the specific travel tools, for example, like Google Travel, Google Flights, TripAdvisor, etc.
And these tools, I guess that there are like third-party APIs. So to access them is through action function calling or MCP. I don't know which of the two versions do you use internally. For doing between agent and agent, how do you do that? It's also function calling, or there is any other kind of protocol in between?
Great question. So we currently still use MCPs because we chose to use MCP when we built it. But currently, my opinion has changed a little bit in that I think everything is a function call, as you said. And I think we will probably migrate off MCP at one point. Mainly because MCP, there are some benefits, but it also introduce some complexities. My philosophy is always like less is more, so try to reduce the complexities. By that, I mean, you can do MCP servers to connect to, say, a TripAdvisor, but you can also just make a simple Python function that call TripAdvisor and return list of results. And then to call that Python function, you actually only need bash. So right now I'm leaning towards that bash, it's all you need. And then the nice thing about bash is composable. So for example, you can do multiple function calls, combine them together, and then do embedded calls as well. So potentially we can convert all our MCP servers into a bash script or Python function, and then the model just call it as if they are calling bash. And then that will just return the same result, but with much fewer contexts. For example, because MCP are loaded into the context, and then all the format of input output are also loaded. But right now we all know that we want to do like progressive disclosure of the tools. So with bash, you can just load, okay, here is a TripAdvisor tool. If you want to know the details, read it, and then you can see the whole tool description. Then let's save, I don't know, 90% of the context. The second question is also great about agent. For agents, I also think calling an agent is a tool call as well. In my opinion, in an extreme case, calling a human is also a tool call. For example, I mean, at one point, I can definitely see that agent can order stuff for us, and then that stuff will get delivered to us. Of course, agent cannot deliver the grocery, but the agent can make a call saying, okay, Yunfan, go deliver this to Yutori office. And then I deliver and then confirm. And then that tool call finishes with a success. And then that's also a tool call. So in my opinion, like tool call is pretty general. It's basically everything is a tool call except that they differs in speed, reliability, predictability, and reliability. So, for example, humans are slow, not reliable, but it can be very general to anything. For, say, a Google search API, definitely return a search result very reliably, but it can only do search. It's very fast, but yeah, basically there are trade-off in different tools. And then, in my opinion, we should make this difference knowable to the agent as well. So agent can use fast tools, fast, reliable tool first. And then if it doesn't work, it will fall back to slow but more general tools.
For agents and what you mentioned before about the division of labor, me with Paul Alvarez, we wrote a paper about 1.5 years ago, like explaining this, like how the division of labor like applies to humans and what can be applied to agents and what's different, because you can do things like merge memories, that it's something that with humans, it does not apply. Something else that we wanted to write was plain text is all you need. And it's an idea that I don't see that has permeated that much into the community yet, but I guess that we will arrive there. That it's mainly this idea of right now we're giving MCPs to say like, well, these are the functions that you can call, and this is how you need to call them. However, most of the world with humans, it's not organized this way. So when I have to order a pizza and they don't tell me like, well, this is specifically how you order the pizza. Like they know how to do the pizzas, and they say like, well, I have an interface that it's the person that it's picking up. And it's like, well, give me whatever information that it's needed for the pizza and I will go and make it. But I don't need to follow any structure. With agents, I am surprised because I see more and more that people are building tools and then try to force the learning of all these tools to the agent that it's calling. Instead of saying like, okay, like the agent is going to make a call with plain text, asking what it wants. And then the person that built the tool, that it's the one that has the most context about the tool, is the one that will build the agent that will translate. I see this with GitHub, for example. Like I see that people try to say, well, models are really good because they know the GitHub API. But most of the time, the agent calling doesn't care about the GitHub API. If I say, like, give me the repos, that's it. Like, I don't care about the structure of the API. So I don't know if internally you are playing with these ideas, talking between agents with plain text, or is it still like a harness that is like pretty fixed on, well, you can call me, but you need to call me with these parameters in this order?
Great question. Yeah, that's actually similar to what I say about calling agent as a tool call as well. So basically, when we call the agent, we actually, the only argument is a text, basically the task the agent need to do. For example, the orchestrator can call a travel planning agent to say, okay, plan a trip to Hawaii for 7 days for a family of 3. And then the travel agent will just plan everything. And then potentially it can just ask for more clarities, kind of save context in file system. And then we can just use those things to communicate.
What have been the main pros of doing it this way? Like, is it the developer experience? Like, do you see like your evals go up?
Great question. I think it's mainly a technical design thing. Believe that with this like all function call design, it's very flexible. We can add anything. It's just like playing Lego. We just add any components into it, just plug it together and it will work. And then we can just expand this to any feature or design we want.
I see. And you mentioned that you built a lot of infrastructure for this. How does this infrastructure looks like? Is it for running the agents?
Yeah, so we build the infrastructure basically. Actually, we run kind of long workflows. So the task we run for minutes or even an hour or 2 hours. So one thing we have is a workflow server. We actually use a startup that called DBoss. Basically, they have durable workflow execution. And then we basically have write this code as if it's Python code, but add their annotators. And then for each step, they can have a checkpoint and then resume from that checkpoint. For travel planning agent, it may do multiple searches, it may call different APIs, and then do reasoning. And then potentially something just stop or waiting for user input in between. Workflow agent can just stop there waiting for the result. And then resume into the same code that just continues. Yeah, that's something we built. This is just to make sure like long running tasks can run correctly, and then every function call is executed exactly once. For example, if we send emails to you, so we don't want to send 3 and we don't want to send 0 either.
Did you have to build a lot of tooling internally for this? So this idea of, well, the agent needs to live in some environment that it can interact with and, like can store memory and things like that. When we were doing the typical thing of one message, one action, you don't need that much of this environment. But now that you're saying like, well, it's like 2 hours of execution, I guess that it's pretty hard for them to even remember what they were doing, what things they tried, what worked, what didn't, and especially what you mentioned of actions that affect the real world and should be executed only once. So what did you have to build there?
Great question. Great question. We actually have more than that. Not only one task execute for 1 hour or even longer, we actually have a cron job that runs a task continuously. So in a extreme case, the task may keep running to find the information. And then after you find the information, report to user, it will start the next run to find even more information. This will be helpful, say, in leads generation. For example, you want to find some customer profiles, you just find and then notify user and then try to find more. In those cases, as I said, we actually have a kind of database thing. We just save all the already found result to this database. So that next time when user finds the agent finds something new, can search against this database to make sure it's something new, not like already reported. And then something we are building right now is a file system. So basically, we want to make this report archive more general to be an actual file system. So the agents can write anything, including say notes about how to access a website, about the preference of the user, or even about what kind of information is already learned, but not just like what's already reported to the user, because the model like Chen has a knowledge cutoff. Yeah, so basically, right now we only have a report archive, but we also want to make a real file system for the agents. So the agents can not only write reports to the archive, they can write anything, including notes about their past progress, about how to access a certain information. For example, they may find a great website about travel. So next time they will always check there first. Instead of having to do Google search, click through multiple website to find that same website. And then you can also note down that user's preference. Right now, we have a feature that user can give feedback about report. And then we will save this feedback into our database. And the agent can reason about this, say, for example, this user like company A, but not company B. So in the future, we will make sure we talk more about company A, not B. So all this can be saved in file system. And then users can search over this file system. Agents can search over this file system to make sure it gives the best information for users. And then in the future, potentially, we can also train the personalized model on top of this full archive so that the model can personalize to a user.
This reminds me a lot of how people work in companies. So if you notice, like you have like Notion or Confluence or something internally or Linear or whatever, where you put there like, hey guys, like this is what I learned. So it's really amazing to see people replicating this for agents this early.
Exactly. Actually, just want to echo what you said. I like the word that there's a company or corporate memory. So basically, all the docs are corporate memory. Although not individual working in a company for say 50 years, but there are many companies that exist for 50 years or even 100 years. That corporate memory is important. It extends beyond a single individual's memory.
Yeah, and I've seen this, especially many engineers that are not in product. They seem to don't care much about it. They're like, I'm smart. I will figure it out doing it. But most of them see it useful in the areas that they know better, that it's basically engineering. So when there is an incident, you usually jump and you don't start debugging out of the box. Like you say like, okay, let me go to the incident book and see like, is this known, is it unknown? What recipe do I need to apply? So this applies to all the other parts of the company. And it's good to see that agents start taking like advantage of this stuff.
Correct. Exactly.
Right now, you are reinventing the wheel then on a lot of stuff, or not reinventing the wheel, but doing it from first principles. So, for example, you're saying like, we want our own file system. Do you know any tools? Because I would imagine that most of the companies out there are going to try to replicate this. So right now it's a competitive advantage to not use like open stuff and just like use your own? Or do you think that companies are going to be specialized on, well, I am the linear for agents. They can use me with an API.
Great question. Great question. I think those API like linear, they are definitely has like a data mode. For example, every company data is in it. With those data, they can do lots of things. But for startup like us, I do think iterating fast is the biggest advantage. And also the understanding of the technology. Basically, what I usually do is I think about human society. As you said, like all those like memory thing can be borrowed from like how we establish companies, how we organize companies. But we just borrow the same idea into our agents. And basically, we need to understand the human society correctly and then learn the best thing from humans and then maybe potentially improve upon it to make it even better than humans. So I think all these are important. And then for our company specifically, because we are building these like cron job workflows, as users use these workflows more and then assemble, aggregate more data, we know more about their preferences, their history. So this can become some kind of like knowledge base that we have advantage over others. I'm pretty sure people can replicate in any different fields.
I see. And this is for how agents interact with themselves. But something that you mentioned was evaluations. So on top of having them working, as seems that you already have, you actually need to measure, are we progressing or not? What kind of evals do you run?
Good question. We actually run a lot of evals. So we have a multi-agent framework. So each agent has their own eval. For example, for travel planning agent, we can just eval if we can plan travel correctly. And we also have end-to-end evals. So basically, for a given user task, we run the end-to-end and then it gives a report. We will eval against a few rubrics we come up with. For example, like staleness, we want to make sure we give the latest information to users. We also want to make sure there's no duplicates in the report before. Basically, we have kind of 6, 7 rubrics, and we also have some say wipe scores, scores like does the report reads fine, something like this. Yeah, we have basically for every issue we identify, we kind of come out with some evaluations to run against it and then make sure it won't happen again. And then we have continuous monitoring of all these scores.
And these are always like sandbox then? Like, for example, for the traveling, I guess that every time that you do an eval, you don't like spam Google Flights. Do you have like mock data and then try to replicate the flows? Or how does that work? Because I guess that it's really hard when the agents are the one just like deciding the workflow that it's being executed.
Yeah, great question. To be honest, I think we have room for improvement in terms of iteration. But right now, we basically only use real data. So we have some mock queries, and then we actually run it against the agent real time to gather real results and then see the report. But as you said, it would be nice to have some fake data and then just to test the logic. On the other hand, I think real data is helpful too because it changes and then it's real or you know what really happens instead of like fake data, you may be overfitting to a specific set of data.
Yeah, it's the ultimate test. Like you can see this with people who work on sales. So, okay, like maybe I can go and talk with someone and it's like, okay, he looks like a good seller. But how do you know? Like you put them in the job. Just like, well, are you selling more than anyone else? I guess that when it's really clear what you need to evolve, that this is easy. But right now, like how close are you to saturate the evils? Like how often do you have to change them?
Great question. Because they are real data, they actually saturate probably much slower than like fake data. So we don't change them that often. Probably I would say we haven't changed in months. But in the same time, we keep adding new entries to the data sets. For example, initially, maybe just 50, and then later 100. And then I think everyone will have their own evals.
I see. So it's basically append only and you haven't saturated any of them. Do you see the trend going up though? Like the first ones that you put there, like can you see like at the beginning was like 30% and now we're at 50?
Excellent question. Well, I think we have some threshold. For example, we look for 90%. And then if we don't hit that 90%, we try to improve it. But if we reach 90%, we kind of consider it as saturated. So because beyond that, maybe some noise kind of thing. Yeah, we do see that some evals saturate, although we kind of intentionally put it in close to the saturated zone because we just want to make sure this task we actually finish there well. And then if we add new task and then or new features, maybe they will start from say 20%, 30%, and then gradually go to 80 to 90%. And then we call 80 to 90% as kind of done.
I see. So it's mainly for regression. So you want to make sure that the new version doesn't break everything that you
Exactly.
worked for in the last year and a
Exactly.
half.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And how do you integrate inside the company all these agents for developing? Now we are talking about where agents are starting to have like their own society and they, you know, like they have their file system to communicate. But at the end of the day, they need to communicate with users too. And I guess that you use agents inside the company to speed this up. So how is inside Yutori? Like how do you use AI?
Great question. We actually use AI a lot. We basically have, we can have agents to answer questions. Actually, right now, kind of a sneak peek. We're actually also adding connectors to different products, say Slack, Gmail, Linear. So we kind of use them as the first customers. So we hope with Scouts, they can help us monitoring Gmail, Slack as well. And then, yeah, we also use all kind of agent product to speed up and make our work more productive.
I see. And you mentioned now the Scouts. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, Scouts basically are agentic web search product. Actually, it's probably more than web, but mainly the web information right now. In the future, there will be Gmail, as I said. And the Scouts basically, given a user task, you will run given frequency, for example, daily, weekly, or sometimes even hourly, and then to find some information you want. To give an example, user can say, monitor this competitor for me. And then if they have any new products or pricing change, let me know. With this, basically, the scouts will have an orchestrator that launch web agent to go to this website, say every day, gather all information. We also have an in-house trained web use model that will actually go to the web page just like humans do, and then click on the buttons, scroll, find the information, and then basically very deep analysis of the website. And then assemble report, go back to orchestrator, and orchestrator will check it against past reports if it's significant enough to report to users. And then with all these, user will get a nice report if something changes. So we will skip the report if nothing changes, so we don't spam users' inbox.
I see.
And just to add, our web user model is actually, we also launched a web user model as a separate API, and then it's SOTA on Mind2Web.
I see. So you also have this product that it's a model that anyone can use?
Yeah, so basically it's actually we have different level of components. In the rawest level, we have a web use API, so you can send an image to it, and then a task. And the model can tell you what to click or what to or action to take. Beyond that, we also have a Scout level API. It gives it or browsing level API, give you a task, it will give you a report. And then Scout level API, which give you a task, will launch multiple browsing tasks, multiple reports, gather reports, and then return results. And then this API will also expose it as a Scout product for end users.
For Scouts, can it be open kind of questions, or it has to be like closed on, go to this page and extract this information, versus I am a director of a cinema, tell me my last movie, how it's doing. So I don't know where to go and search this information, but the Scout goes and does it for me.
Yes, it can. Right now, I think the only blocker is auth. So for example, if you need to log into your account to gather information, then it can't yet. But that's something we actively working on, and hopefully we can fix it. And because like auth, there's some like personal data problem, so we want to be very careful.
Yeah. And right now, how are people using the product? Like, what kind of real world scenarios are people using this for?
Great question. We have seen lots of use cases. For example, like students or researchers use it to read papers. They may just have their area of interest, and then we just keep searching for new papers every day. You will send a list of papers to read. We also see like real estate professionals or investors use it to find deals. For example, just look at all deals on specific like the website of their interests, and then try to enrich the data with some search results to see if the data actually makes sense, if they are actually a deal, and then give a report in the end. And we also see like sales or recruiters try to find like candidates or customers. All of them.
I see. And right now, where is the breaking point? So you have this product and, like you had to develop like quite a lot to get to it. Where is where you can start seeing the cracks of the current models?
So basically, to rephrase the question, when the model doesn't work or the model need to be improved?
Exactly.
Great question. So I would say it's the reliability. So for example, based on our internal benchmarking and based on our own testing, the Scout products are very reliable, probably more than 95% accurate most of the case. However, if you think about a use case where you monitor information every day for a month, 95% over 30 days, it's probably guaranteed to have 1 or 2 errors. So in that case, some users will complain that the Scout gave me the wrong result. Although the user didn't know the Scout were right, I don't know, 29 out of 30 days, just 1 day it was wrong. But I totally understand that this gave very bad experience for users. Sometimes user complain this is completely wrong information. So one thing we are actually working on is try to improve the reliability even more, try to push it from 95% to say 99 or even 99.9%. And in my opinion, although the percentage is very small, but this push from 99 to 99.9% actually probably gives more value than the previous ones, because now you can use it on even more valuable tasks. You can trust it more. You can save even more.
And for achieving this kind of results, do you need to use like the latest, biggest model from some like a frontier lab, or you train your own and you get better results even?
That's an excellent question. So we actually use a combination of closed source model and open source models. We also train our own model, as I just said. We fine tune our model that achieve SOTA on some evaluation benchmarks. The reason we chose both closed source and open source model is because I think not all tokens are equivalent. Some tokens are much more important. For example, need reasoning orchestrator to know what to look for. In these high intelligence to point in the direction. But there are also some tasks just to read a boring website to see if information is there. This is a very, very simple task. So we want to make sure our product is accessible to all users. I mean, of course, there are some users who can pay, say, $100 or even $1,000 a month for our product. But we want to make sure the entry point is low. So we kind of optimize our product so that for those boring tasks or simpler tasks, we use open source models to gather information. But right now, we only have one fine-tuned model, but in the future, we definitely will plan to fine-tune more models in different areas so that you will give even better performance.
And the fine-tuned model that you have is the one for using the web, the one that it's exposed as a product?
Correct.
something that is interesting here that it's different from humans is this idea of a task may be subdivided by many small tasks that with humans you cannot swap people. So, for example, it's really, really hard for lawyers, for example, to say like, okay, I am doing everything and only like the most experienced lawyer comes for one question and then it leaves and continues a junior one. So usually what they have to do is like ballpark. It's like, well, this is an important case, so it goes to the experienced one. This is not an important case, like the junior can do it and maybe like ask some stuff. But as you mentioned with models, we can actually do like, okay, the best model or the most optimal model for this part of the task and actually keep swapping and get like the same performance as if you do it with the big one, but actually at a cheaper price. This is something that with humans it's really hard to do because we cannot like turn on and off people at will. But with models, seems that there is no difference. So nice to see that this is already happening in your product.
Yeah, exactly. Just to add a bit more, I think it happens for human a little bit as well. So, for example, some law firm they may have some interns to gather past cases, and then the experienced lawyer will just look at those cases. So, similar in our agent, basically, we have some smaller models to gather the information, and then we have the big smart model to look at gather the information to see if they are really useful. So, it is like pipelined approach. It's the most efficient, I think, in both agents and in humans.
100%. So the granularity is what changes. So right now, this already happens. Like usually there's like
Exactly.
some pre-filter, but something that we cannot do is like bring the person with the specific knowledge only for these 2 sentences of the paper. So for example, if I am reviewing a paper and I have doubts, I have to go to my boss and say like, hey, sorry, like my advisor, can you help me with this? And then he has to load all the context and then, like he cannot let go. Now we can say like, hey, it's specifically this, just do these 3 numbers. Okay, thank you very much, and continue.
Exactly.
This is really, really cool, and I can't wait to see how these models start shaping economies and society through this. Okay, so we are getting close to the end of the interview. Something that I would like to know is what do you imagine that it's going to happen with AI in the next year and a half for people to know, like people who are just learning about all of this, what would you recommend them to watch out?
Great question. I think a few things. One is I do believe like scaling will continue. Big models will get smarter and smarter. And then I do think it can go very, very far. Like can do a lot of like human tasks. So we can automate all those tasks so humans can just focus on what they really matter to them. But at the same time, I do think the model economies are also important. As I said, we put some small models on smaller tasks that make the overall like cost more effective. I think before this year, like in 2025, it's like growing stage. People care less about cost. So and then the cost as a percentage to the overall cost is small, so probably they don't care as much either. But in the future, I do think more and more tasks will be on AI, and then the model economy will be very important. So it's important to choose the right sized model for the right task. And then we also want to make sure those right sized model are reliable as well. Yeah, that's actually my second point. So the reliability, I kind of get to it a bit before. Basically, all of a task successful rate is 95% or even 99%. If you repeat again, it's guaranteed to fail. So we want to push that last 1 mile so that we can reach the finish line to make sure the task is really, really reliable. But in the same time, we also want to make sure that when the model gets really reliable, we really trust our model. So we have the harness to catch it when it's wrong. So we also have agents to say verify the agent or supervise the agent so that if it's wrong, we don't just send the wrong information to users and the users say we notified if agents make a mistake. I think all this will be very important in the next year or 2.
I see. So this reliability and self-healing, do you think that it's going to increase? People say
Of
like,
course.
okay, it's not, this is something that it always annoyed me a bit because I heard like for the last year and a half, people saying like, well, if you have something that it's 95% effective and you run it on a 10-step thing, you are guaranteed that it fails. And you're like, well, but wait a second. It's not like one step fails and you give up. Like you can retry it until it goes okay. And then out of the blue, you say like, well, Yeah, if you only run it n steps, like 10 steps, you have high possibility of chances. But you know that you're going to get 99 if you run 21 steps. So just run it 21 times. Like, yeah, on the step that it fails, detect that it failed and run it again. So I also think that this is going to be one of the biggest things on the next year and a half of people saying, okay, how can we not just take the output, but actually put it in systems that take the stuff?
Totally.
So we usually end up with a couple of questions, the first one positive and the other one negative. The first one is like, what would you like to see more in the world of AI in the next 6 months?
Great question. I think like reliability is definitely one thing I just mentioned. A second thing I think is efficiency. I think right now people probably have many ways to optimize the models, and then specifically like context engineering. We also have many different approaches to do this. I do think it's important that we teach the model more about how to optimize the context. Of course, the context will grow, but it's still limited resources. So for example, how we make sure only the most important thing goes into a context, how we offload the context when it doesn't matter. All these kind of things will make the model faster, cheaper, and I think better in terms of quality.
Yeah, like actually not polluting the context increases results. It
Totally.
happens to humans and it happens to models. And as a counterpoint, what would you like to see less in the world of AI in the next 6 months?
Great question. One thing I realized recently is AI is really easy to use. That's when people just kind of like abuse it, quote unquote. For example, some tasks, it's apparently that we can use a traditional approach to do it, but people just use AI to do it. For example, just could give a joke. Someone told me a joke saying, okay, you want to sort the numbers to find the largest number in a like 1,000 number array. And then people say, okay, let's roll to ChatGPT and then ask GPT what's the biggest. Oh, well, I think it works. It works. But that basically tells the trend that because it's so easy to use, we kind of abuse it and then we don't use it for the best thing. That's okay. I think people have the freedom to choose the easiest thing for them. But I think from the like practitioner side, like from AI researcher engineering side, we need to find a way to correctly redirect this kind of requests to a traditional thing. So one thing we can do is potentially we can build some tools, use tools to solve an array to find a large number instead of just ask ChatGPT to look at the 1,000 number to find the biggest one. Because look at the number to find the biggest one, however smart the model is, there's some chance it will be wrong. And then I don't think that's the right thing for humans either.
Yeah, that's what I felt even with the training with reasoning LLMs. And say like, well, it kind of imitates what humans do, but then you see all the things that we have on symbolic logic and things like that. And it's like, well, actually, when we have to reason, we have a machinery built specifically for that. But people from ML say like, no, let's continue with the probabilistic one and try to increase the probability 99.9%. You're like, guys, the engine, use the engine. But it always takes a bit for people to integrate these ideas together. I think that this will happen, but I don't know if in the next 6 months.
Totally.
I wish that was true, but I think that the abuse just started.
Totally. Yeah, I just want to echo your point. I think like neural, like probabilistic approach and symbolic approach both have their own benefits. The combination of the two will the best result.
Yeah. And I think that that's coming. Like this is not something that, well, nobody is working on this, but it was curious for me to see big labs just like trash it at the beginning. It's like, well, we don't need this. And check, it almost works, 95% efficiency. And you're like, well, but wait a second.
Totally.
But we have the calculator for this. So just use the calculator for this.
Totally.
Perfect. So something important, people who want to learn more about you and Yutori, where can they find you?
I think they can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. So I will make sure to add the text there. Then for Yutori is yutori.com and the new product is Scouts. Excellent. So looking forward to, checking the next 6 months if at least the first one of reliability and efficiency becomes true.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thank you. It was very nice talking with you.
Thank you, Yunfan. Talk to you soon.
Bye.